All right, I am back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup show, in not optimal recording conditions because it is storming outside and also I am kind of sick. So if I sound weird, that's why. But, still want to do the show as there was a good amount of stuff that happened this week, including one major release, which I will just open with. That would be the launch of Elden Ring Nightreign, the co-op multiplayer roguelike that FromSoft has decided to do as sort of a new experiment while using the Elden Ring IP, but also Dark Souls, and they pull a lot of stuff from multiple different games in terms of enemies and outfits and all this stuff. So it released, and there's some good news and bad news. The good news is that it is done very well. It rocketed up to 300,000 concurrents last night, which is, a weeknight, and also it sold 2 million copies day one, I think. Very, very good performance. That's an excellent performance, no disputing that. How it's received has been less amazing. Last I checked, it has a 77 Metascore from critics, and this is not really a critics don't like it, audiences love it thing so far. It also has a 66% mixed review ratio on Steam. And some of this is conceptual, where even if you like Elden Ring games, this is not that. This is a very different format of game, even if combat is kind of the same. This roguelike structure, this teamwork structure is much different than what you're going to experience in that game. So even if you normally like FromSoft games, and you even like some of the PvP and invading and like co-op boss stuff, this is a little different. And for me personally, I did have an advance code for this. I barely had time to play it, but from what I could tell, it wasn't exactly a surprise going in, but it just wasn't for me. And even as huge fans of the other game, there are larger issues though that are not really related to just the genre. Nightreign has launched just missing a lot of pretty basic things. And a lot of this was touched on in reviews, but now that players are getting their hands on it, they're like, wait, what? This includes a lack of comms, both voice and text. There is, no internal way to communicate with your teammates outside of, I think there's like a little bit of a ping system, but it's not very detailed. And that's not great for a co-op game that really does require a lot of coordination, especially once you get to things like the Night Lord bosses, which have actual mechanics, and you're going to want to plan your runs and stuff like that. So really, this is another one of those games where it's like, well, I hope you have two other friends to play using comms, because if not, that is going to be a significant hamper on your gameplay, because you have to rely on random teammates that you have no real control over. Maybe they're awesome, maybe they run around and do their own insane stuff and they sink your whole run. Who knows? So I think people discovering that there's no comms has been bad. And then after that, they're like, okay, well, I don't want to play with other people who I can't talk to. I want to play with my buddy. Can't just play with one buddy in a duos. There are no duos. This is something that FromSoft said they just overlooked. So they forgot to do duos, essentially. So if you do duos, they will just randomly fill you with a third person. So not really duos. You can just get that third person to leave, I guess, if they just get frustrated enough. But yeah, not actual duos. So you need two other friends, or you're going to play with randoms. A lot of games keep doing this. I made a joke comparing this to Marathon, but it's the same kind of issue. Like either, for a game like this, you need three people on comms, or it's just a much worse experience. There are solos here. You can play solos. It's at least been a tiny bit balanced for solos, but this is not something a lot of people are going to want to do, because it's like kind of like ultra challenge mode. And I think there's an item you can find for self-revive, but you don't have an inborn self-revive. So like if you go down, you're down. And like we know how easily, you can go down in one of these games, and except here you have these longer runs, and if you lose once, like that's all scrapped. It's not just like you go back to a thing and get all your runes back, like you're done. So that is certainly more punishing. Finally, people are upset to learn that there is no crossplay. It's 2025. Everything should have crossplay. So if you are trying to play with friends, that makes it even harder, because they all have to be on your platform. And then there are other issues like PC performance and things like that that are responsible for some of these bad Steam reviews. Which again, it's bad PC performance is never great in any game, but here when you can have one wrong stutter or something to tank an entire run, very bad. Don't want that. So successful launch in terms of players and money, which is great, but not exactly the top-notch release from FromSoft that we normally expect. So we'll see how it does longer term. I'm curious if people bounce off of it. I'm curious if they're able to, throw things in the game they need, like chat and duos and things like that in short order, but I guess we'll see. This next thing is related to games in the sense that it's about the Last of Us show. We had the finale this weekend, and it's, it was okay. It ended on a kind of bad cliffhanger that I posted about. It's like a failed cutscene where like Abby seemingly shoots Ellie, which we if you've played the game, you know the answer to that. But what happened after is Craig Mazin, the co-showrunner and the guy who writes most of the show, commented about how like Abby is still much more capable than Ellie, and then it came out later that they wrote a fight scene for Ellie that was like closer to the game with Owen and Mel, and then they scrapped it in favor of this like she accidentally shoots both of them with one bullet thing, because they said that like it was like the size differential made no sense, and like it's just a bunch of really annoying stuff, and I think it really annoys everybody, because if you're a game player, you're like, this is not remotely like the game, this is not the Ellie from the game at all. And then if you're a Bella fan, they're being sidelined because you're like, oh, well, they can't perform in this way, even though they had a ton of fight training both in and out of the show, and we should have prepared for something like this. And there are ways for them to actually, kick ass in these fight scenes, and they're just not doing it. And then there's the, Bella shouldn't have been cast at all group, where if this was a, taller, older actress, this wouldn't have been an issue, and they could have done more fights and things like that. So it was a mistake to cast Bella. Everybody's mad about how this is being handled pretty much. So Mazin, he just doesn't fundamentally seem like he understands the character, or he's just like totally trying to rewrite her into something else that is just not pulled from the games. And you could say like, oh, it's, they're adapting it for TV, it's going to be different, but it's worse. I really think it's worse. I think, audiences I've talked to that, watch the show and haven't played the games think it's worse. They're kind of confused about why Ellie seems so dumb. This has like been a consistent problem with the season, and she's just kind of this dumb kid, where that's not how she is in the games, and she's much more methodical and, less just flying by the seat of her pants, and capable in combat, and capable of doing all these things. And it's just, that's not how the show's been, which is very disappointing. And now we'll have like a full Abby season 2.5 years from now or something, because they haven't even like fully conceptually told the cast, like Bella and Caitlin Dever, what's happening. So like they're barely even getting started on it after it airs. So like it's not going to be here for 2.5 years, probably. Exhausting. I'm exhausted with this whole process of making shows. Next we have actual hardware stuff. PS5 or PlayStation for Days of Play put a ton of their hardware on sale for a decent amount off. They did these Call of Duty packages for like $400 or so, and then they took $50 off the price of PS5 Pro. And normally it wouldn't be like a huge deal to have a sale, but it's just interesting as a contrast to a couple weeks ago when Xbox dramatically raised their prices in the face of tariffs and, quote, economic uncertainty. And between the sales of PlayStation and then the price increases of Xbox, the disparities here are now insane. Like I wrote some of these down in this article where it's like a PS5 Pro costs $90 less than the high storage Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S costs $30 more than a digital PS5 that comes with Black Ops 6. Like the disparities here are huge. Like it's not even close in terms of the difference in these prices now. And Xbox has already had just plummeting sales. Like every quarter you're like, oh, hardware's down 30%, hardware's down 35%, hardware's down 33%, all the time. And I don't know exactly what the estimate is. It used to be like 2-to-1. Then I think it went 3-to-1 for PlayStation. I think some quarters it was being like 5-to-1. And then obviously Microsoft's just doing this thing where they release their first party games on PlayStation either immediately or later, or who knows. It just doesn't seem like they're terribly interested in selling much hardware anymore. I read a different report recently, I haven't gone through it, that like their dedicated handheld idea is delayed now or something. Like that's something they were working on that's delayed. They are allegedly still making a next generation console for some reason. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, the price disparity, like these sales won't last forever. PlayStation still may increase their prices because the tariff war and whatever is still ongoing and changing day to day. But currently, crazy difference. There was some dust-ups about Marathon this week. I was sort of involved in them, where there was a story from Colin Moriarty of Sacred Symbols, who's like a big PlayStation guy and has good connections. He said that his sources said that Sony had canceled paid marketing in like a specific region, and he said this was very unusual this late in the process. This sort of got extrapolated to Sony has canceled all paid marketing for the game for this quarter, and that kind of pointed toward some sort of delay. This became a whole thing where then he clarified. He's like, no, I said a specific region. I didn't say all marketing. Yeah, okay. So like it's it's still not good news, but the idea that Sony has definitely canceled all marketing plans everywhere it had for Marathon is not happening. I can go back to what I said, and what I heard on the Bungie side was that the current campaign was scrapped and then has to be rebooted from scratch. That includes this idea that they were going to roll out a trailer pretty soon, and once they had a new trailer, they were going to open up pre-orders for the game, but everything is in flux now because of take your pick. Gameplay reveal, alpha reactions, art theft. I don't know what's happening past that. I haven't heard anything about Sony canceling all marketing or whatever, or Bungie not doing a campaign leading up to September 23rd. There was a video this week that was like a trailer of all upcoming PlayStation games or ones that exist already, and Marathon was shown. It's September 23rd, 2025. Release date was shown. Everyone's like, oh, well, that confirms it. No, I just think they have that still there, because if they didn't have that, if they didn't show Marathon, if they didn't have a date, that would raise more questions than just keeping with what is being said publicly already. So I would not view that as confirmation one way or the other what's happening. In my heart and soul, I still believe there's going to be some sort of delay. But if we can tell that for sure based on marketing or lack of marketing, I don't know if that can be said yet, but my gut has always been that they're probably going to do a delay based on everything here. Finally, we'll end with something more interesting here, where you're more lighthearted, I guess, where there are two upcoming video game adaptations that are going to be interesting. The more recently announced one is Alex Garland's Elden Ring movie from A24, which is they produce quality films. They also produce not the most expensive films, and I cannot imagine how much an accurate Elden Ring movie would cost. The news there is that this is kind of big trade news, so it seems more closer to reality, that Kit Connor is being considered to reunite with Alex Garland to play the lead, probably the Tarnished. We don't really know how much it's directly adapting the game, or if it's adapting like a story in the world, maybe that we already know, or something with existing characters that have names that are not the Tarnished. Kit Connor was in Warfare, which was an Alex Garland film that came out recently. Kit Connor is also in Heartstopper, the teen romance show that ended, I think, after 3 seasons. Really, really high scoring Netflix show, both critically and for audiences. For a while there, it was one of the highest you could find in terms of the combo of the critic score and the audience score. I saw Kit Connor 10 feet away from me when I was in New York watching his Romeo and Juliet show with Rachel Zegler. And I don't know, cool to be that close to the next Elden Ring guy. And I mean, he did a good job in that. And who knows, he's English, so he'll have the necessary vibe or whatever. We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't say he's like super leading A-list man guy, but his star is certainly rising, and I'd be curious to see him there. Another report today is that this is more from an insider, that rather than something that's like really, really close to fruition. This is from Daniel RPK, who's like a big movie TV insider, and he says that Hunter Schafer is being eyed to play Zelda in the Legend of Zelda movie, which you may forget is happening. That is a live action movie from Wes Ball, who did the Maze Runner movies, but supposedly he's like the biggest Zelda fan ever. So this is a movie he got approved by Nintendo, and they're doing it. Hunter Schafer, I think she looks perfect in the part. Like, you see pictures of her, and it's just, she's like an elf that looks like Zelda. Of course, there are very, very annoying amounts of controversy because Schafer is trans. Casting a trans actress as a part in here, like, you'll never guess what happened in the comment section of the article thread that I put up after I wrote this. And I didn't even mention she was trans in the article, but sure enough. And hopefully I'm not overestimating my YouTube audience here, and you guys in the comments, that maybe you'll be a little more chill about it, but I don't know. She's great in everything I've seen her in. She looks like Zelda. Seems cool to me, but that seems to still be in pretty early stages. I have no idea when that's going to get here. I have no idea if that's something that could be locked into development hell or something, but I guess we'll wait and see. The Elden Ring thing seems to be moving faster, which is interesting, but we'll see how that happens. I'm curious, the upcoming God of War show, who they're going to cast as Kratos there. The only person that even comes to mind for me there is Jason Momoa, but I don't know. We'll see. So that is the week. Other stuff happened too, but I'm not playing anything right now. I may not do this next week because if all goes well, I should have another kid as of next week. So we'll be taking some time for that, obviously, and we're all very excited here. So thanks in advance for your well wishes if you made it this far into the video. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.